Welcome back to Database DevOps from start to finish. Right now, we are in the Building a New Project section, and in this lesson, we're going to be modifying our database project and then republishing those scripts. So let's go right to Visual Studio, and let's start making some modifications. I think the biggest change we can make, or the one that might be the most disruptive, is going to be modifying a table, because that already has data in it. So what happens? So let's go to the location table. And in here, I've noticed that we're missing something. So we have location name, that's like the Golden Gate Bridge or the Statue of Liberty. The location itself is going to be the place in the globe that it is. But I'm saying on the globe, but it seems like it'd make more sense to break that out into two pieces. One is the location, and then the other is the country that it's in. Because we might want to filter by which country it is. So I am going to make the modification. I'm going to say allow nulls because right now, well, actually, let's do this. Let's say don't allow nulls, but add in a default value of an empty string. Because right now we don't have any country in that table. And so we either have to say it's nullable or that we have to give it a default value. Otherwise, it just won't do an update because we already have records there and those records don't have values. So that's a given no matter what type of modification you're making, whether you're using SSMS or writing the SQL script yourself or whatever. You have to have either a new column be nullable or it has to have a default value if you're adding it to a table that already has existing records. So we're going to add this. Now, the other thing we could do that we're going to wait until later to do is we could change some names. So if I said location name and I said, oh, that's just horrible, let's call it something else like point of interest and then location. That makes more sense, but I don't want to do that yet because that we're going to cover in a later video on refactoring. But this is going to be an additive change, something where we're adding something new, and it will modify an existing table. So let's hit save. And now what do? Well, it's quite simple. Now that we have the publish profile saved, we just double click here and say publish again. Now remember, this database already has data in it, but if I hit publish, it's already done. If I come over here to my location table and say view data, we now have country, and notice it's not null, it's just an empty string for each of these. And then I can come in here and make the modification to say, well, this is USA, and so is this. And now I could come back over here to my location table and say, actually take out the defaults. Don't allow an empty string if we wanted to. We can make it not nullable that way. I'll do it for now. I wouldn't do it probably in the future, but this is fine. And now I can say again, publish again. Whoops, not right click publish. Double click on this and say publish. Now it's published. Now if we right click and say view data, we can see the data, but also if we look at the designer for this, we'll see that it is not null for the country. Notice this designer looks exactly like the designer that we would create if we double-clicked on location. They look exactly the same. It's just that this designer right here is actually for the actual database table, not our script. So how is it that it handles the idea of this update without overwriting and wiping out the location table? Well, it's all in the scripts that it creates. So if we go to bin, debug, and look at our deployment reports and our deployments, notice there's 3 files here and that they're in order. The original file and then 1 and then 2. That's because it's remembering the order in which it ran these files and it's saving them so we can then use them later. So if we right click on this one, which is where we added the column and made it a default value of empty string. We open this with Notepad. We'll see that it actually is just adding the country with a default value. That's all it's doing in here, and it's doing an alter table on that. It's saying the table already exists, we're just making a modification of it. If we come over here and look at this one as well, we'll see that it's going to do an alter table, and it's going to drop the constraint, and this is the constraint name, which is that this constraint right here, which is the default of empty double quotes. Okay, so it knows how to do all this information, and it's doing it dynamically based upon what we ask it for in our editor without having us to write these complicated scripts. It just says, okay, I know how to do this. I know the next step, and I'll write that script for you. Now, what if you wanted to write a change that actually got rid of data? So we come back over here to our location table and say, you know what? That country code, that was a dumb idea. So I can delete it here, I can delete it here. Either one, I've deleted it, and I hit save. And it says, okay. So I go to publish this and say publish. Now this is going to destroy data. Do you want to do that necessarily? Probably not. But if I hit publish, it says, no, you can't do that. An error occurred while batch was executing. If I view results on this, it will come down here and say, if we look at the error, actually it's down here in the messages below, you can see it, that says that the script execution error, the execution error was rows were detected. The schema update is terminated because data loss might occur. So what it's saying is, no, you can't do this automatically because you might destroy stuff. So let's not do it that way. So that's telling us that I'm not going to do this because this is going to cause you data loss. Let's look at the script for this. So right click, open folder in File Explorer. Let's come to the bin folder, debug, right click on the last publish and say open Notepad, or Notepad++ actually. We come right down here, we'll see a script that says, hey, the country column is being dropped, so data loss could occur. And then it does an if exists, select top one from location. And it says, oh, you know what? There's rows detected. So if there was no rows in the location table, this wouldn't be a problem. But since there are rows in the location table, then it's going to raise an error. And it says that this is the error right here. And then if you notice, on error, exit. So raise an error and stop. But if we don't find rows in the location table, then alter the table to drop the column. So what this has done is it's forced you to make sure that your table is empty before you do something destructive. Now let's see what happens when we do it in a more automatic fashion. So first, let's make sure you see the data in the location table. There's USA for both of these entries in the country column. But if I were to go back over to the location and see that, yes, I've deleted that column, I don't want that column, and it's okay to lose that data. If I'm really sure, there is another option for you where you don't have to manually modify the scripts. Now, I advocate for you to manually modify the scripts. It gives you that little extra pain that's necessary to make sure you pause and say, is this really what I want to do? The automated route allows you a little bit more ease of making these horribly destructive changes. And I'm not a huge fan in some ways because of the fact that you might accidentally push through a change that destroys something you're not expecting. For instance, yes, you know that you've deleted this column, and yes, you know data loss is going to occur. But what if, while you're modifying the person table, you accidentally highlighted it, and went like this. You bumped the delete key, whatever. You've now lost the email address column. But if you had saved this and you went to publish and go, yeah, I know I'm going to lose the column for or the country location or country in location table. That's no big deal. Yes, I want to do destructive changes. You might not realize you have destructive changes in 2 tables, not just 1. So I would encourage you to run it first, knowing it's going to fail. But then, if you've checked over the failures and made sure the only failures are the ones you expect, if you double-click on the Publish again and go to Advanced, there's a checkbox here that should always be checked that says Block Incremental Deployment if data loss might occur. If you uncheck that and hit OK, do not hit Save, but hit Publish, what will happen is it will run that destructive change anyway. Let's do that. We run this, and once this is done, we got a green light, and now we come back over here to our location, right-click, and go to View Data, and notice that the country is gone. There is no more country anymore. That data is gone. We don't know what country they're from anymore because it's been destroyed. As long as you're okay and you know that that's the only data you're destroying and that that data is okay to destroy, that option is a good one, an easy one. But it might be better to modify the script by hand so you make sure you know which things are getting destroyed and are sure, and you sign off every time on, yes, this is okay to destroy this data. Now notice, since I had not hit save, if I go to advanced, that checkbox is checked again. That's why I say don't hit save, because if you change that and then hit save first, every future publish will by default destroy data if there's data to destroy. And that's not a good thing. One of the biggest issues that database developers have is the idea of destroying data accidentally. It happens. It happens to all of us. All of us at one point or another have run a bad script or done something else that destroys data. And a lot of times it's in production. Oops. But this is one of those ways you can put something in place to stop yourself from accidentally destroying data. By putting this in place, you now know that, yes, there's nothing here that's going to destroy the data, or there is something here and I have to sign off on it manually before I can move forward.